welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spidercast. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen. As always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spidey comics from March of 1987.
No, it's 88.
Yeah, 88.
Yeah,
You're
88.
right.
And for the special occasion, just like every other week, we have G.I. Jolie.
I am the special occasion. Don't be fooled.
We also got Bex Luthor. Also joining us, very special guest. Thanks for coming out, Cousin Brandon.
Yay! Hey guys, hi Canada. Always happy to see you. By the way, like Josh, I also thought it was 87 for that very same reason. And second of all, I'm an instructional developer.
Well, just for those that don't know, the cover date on these comics all says March of 88. But as Cousin Brandon and I can attest to, when these came out when we were kids, there was at least 3 or 4 months lead time, right?
Yeah,
because
I forgot.
Right, because the month on the cover is not the month it's published, it's the month for the newsstands to pull them off the stands. That's what it's there for. So it's always about 3 or 4 months ahead of time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then around 90, 91, it got closer. Like they brought it from, say, I don't know if it was 6 months to 3 months or 4 months to 2 months, but they definitely changed it. So that's why.
What is the what's the rationale behind pulling them from the stands?
Because back then, newsstands, let's just say they got 100 copies of Batman. Then they would never sell 100. They would always sell a percentage of that. So let's just say they sold 80. Then at the end of the 3 or 4 month period, they would pull them, rip off all the covers, mail the covers back to DC to get a credit or something, and then they would trash the actual physical comics.
I think that still happens.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
This sounds like what they do in the States after the Super Bowl when they print up the T-shirts of the team that didn't win, and then they send them to a third world nation.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And they're like right now, there's some nation and they're all wearing Cincinnati Bengals World Championship T-shirts.
There you go.
Wow.
So yeah, very, very strange. Huh.
Next time we see Roman, he'll have one. Anyway.
That's Michael calling Russia a third world country.
Just in case anyone didn't.
No offense,
it.
Russia's second world. Anyway, okay, back to these comics.
No
here.
offense to our fans in Russia.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. We have fans all over the world. Anyway.
So
Even
this
a
week,
third world country like Russia.
Russia immediately demobilizes from Ukraine,
Right,
and heads this way.
To come and kill us. Yeah.
Fucking try me, bitch. I could take Putin. Look at him.
I could.
Okay, so anyway, we're talking about some comic books that I had as a kid here. We got Web of Spider-Man number 36.
Mhm.
And as usual, Josh is going to tell us what happens in this one.
Right. So actually something again is happening this week. We're getting a new logo for Web.
Yes.
Should
we comment on it?
I mean, it's the same. It's following the amazing formula, just like Spectacular did.
Right.
So it's kind of boring, to be honest. It's a good title. It's a good title. It's a good logo. It's just kind of a bummer that they're making them all look the same now.
Right.
Because they all had their little distinct personalities that kind of fit with the comics, I felt. So
and the editor probably thought he was so clever to make them all the same, but you're right. It just looks homogenized.
Yeah, and maybe it would make sense if they're gonna have the stories continue between each book, right? Like Web leads into Amazing, that then leads into Spectacular, and they all connect. But now that they've all become their own books again, it really doesn't make sense that they're all same logo, same everything. But
right, I agree.
Whatever.
Can I ask a quick question? When you say the logo, are you talking about on the cover, the upper left part of it?
No, the actual Web of Spider-Man title.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what you meant. Sorry. Thank you.
Because
but Yeah, go ahead,
Web,
Josh.
Web had like these like really big block letters that were like coming towards you, and it said
Yeah.
"Web of" like written in the webs. And
Yeah.
then Spectacular Spider-Man was originally called Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and it had like pretty blocky letters too, but it was more standard, and it kind of fit the theme earlier on because it felt more like Letterman jacket font. And earlier on, it was kind of more focused on his personal life at the university. And that's kind of like where his university friends, all their stories were always in like the spectacular issues. So yeah, so it's kind of a bummer that these titles are losing their personality. It's not a big deal, really. Like, it doesn't change anything in the comic, but I think it's worth noting that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's also, we should point out, this is sort of the beginning of a new era, and that's why I've updated the Spider-Cast logo. Jim Salicrup took over at least 6 months ago or more, but this is where the books really changed tone. Because as I pointed out in a recent post, Todd McFarlane's on the way as the regular artist. Alex Saviuk takes over Web. Sal Buscema takes over Spectacular. And the tone of the books gets a little bit lighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more fun and a little bit less dark and a little bit less, violent, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So Web of number 36 starts off with Peter surprising MJ in the Spider-Man costume outside of their apartment. Or like on their street or whatever. He swings and like, picks her up with her groceries, and they swing onto the roof, which is a little weird. Like, don't you think maybe that'll blow your cover? Whatever. They go back into their apartment together, and he starts kind of recapping what happened last issue with Steve Petty and his like robot that he used to start attacking his high school bullies. And Peter currently is substitute teaching at his old high school. So we kind of get a nice little recap. And normally recaps are so freaking boring, especially since we do this like weekly. But this one felt like nice because it was nice to see MJ's input and like them kind of chatting together about what had happened. And she's kind of like giving him some advice at the beginning. So we cut over back to Petty, who we see is like got like an exosuit on that he was going to use for a science fair, and two of his friends, I forget their names, Rhonda and Jake. So they kind of see him working on this project, and they see like the electricity kind of like shocking him. So they think something is wrong. So they rush in and they flip the light switch in his secret lab, which apparently overloads the systems and pumps more electricity into him. How that happens, I don't know. But it turns him into this like almost Electro type of supervillain, where he's got this exosuit on, and on top of that, he's like got this electrical ability. As he's running through the hallway, the lights are like bursting above him, and his friends look on and are just completely terrified. Then we completely stop everything that's happening in the comic, and we have our first interlude. And honestly, I can't remember this guy's name. He's talking to somebody. He's got like a crystal, and maybe it's got like drugs in it or something, and he's using it to like blackmail this woman. Not really important because it doesn't come up again in this.
Not in this issue, but he's a vet. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is that a crystal, or was he giving her coke? I thought they were snorting coke.
I don't think so. No, I think it's like something that helps him persuade people. Yeah.
Oh my God! I thought he was like, I'm going to persuade her, and he has a vial, like a little 8-ball or whatever, and they're doing drugs. That's what I thought.
No, I don't think that would show that.
I don't think that it's a hypnotized thing though, because
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what?
But he does say that I have what you want, and shows the necklace. So something is going on here, but it's something that they're setting up for like later on in a completely different issue that has nothing to do with this. So then we see that Tombstone has been following this dude around, and Robbie Robertson walks
And this is
out
the
of like.
first appearance of Tombstone, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Wow.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Love him. Okay.
And Robbie Robertson walks out of like a donut shop or something, and he sees Tombstone. And he's like, "Oh no, he's back." Then we jump over to interlude number 2, and we're back in this like little town in South America. The dude that's being turned into the tarantula is like being worked on in the science lab, and he's like so angry he threatens the scientist and says, "I'm going to kill you when I'm out of this." And then he talks to the general. Nothing else really happens. Interlude 2 done. We cut back to the actual story that's happening. MJ and Peter are in bed, and Peter's spider sense starts going off for some reason, and then like the TV turns on and it's like all staticky. He runs to the living room and everything is like flashing and all the lights are flickering, all the electronics are turning on and off. Something weird's happening. Then all of a sudden, the lights are cut. There's no electricity. Peter knows something's going on, so he crawls to the roof. He's like, his spider senses are going off, looking at the antenna. And he turns around, crawls back into the building, and Petty is in his apartment and steals MJ and kidnaps her to get revenge on Peter Parker, but not before zapping his leg and injuring him. So he's going to have a hard time now walking to go save MJ. He puts on the suit. He follows the destructive path to find MJ. He brings her on top of a building, and she's kind of trapped there. Peter swings up there, and then we cut over to his friends from earlier. They see what's happening on the news, and they decide that they're going to go and try and help. MJ does this really cool moment where she starts distracting Petty, so Peter has a chance to swing in and knock him out. So they start fighting on the roof. He's using like electrical wires to tie Peter up, and we see his friends are getting closer, and they bust through the police barricade to go run into the building to help their friend. The fight continues with him and Peter, and then we see that his like friends call to him and say that we want to help. So he's like kind of has this moment where he realizes he's got friends and there's people that actually care about him. So it kind of gives him a moment to calm down and relax. And then Peter punches him anyways, and he like overloads and explodes. And as he falls, Peter's able to whip him up to save him from falling, lowering him down to his friend safely. And then we kind of have a little bit of where MJ is helping Peter clean up and clear his wounds. Bless you, Michael. And then we have epilogue number 2, where we cut back to South America. This man has finally become the tarantula, and he kills the scientist like he said he was going to. We find out that his first assignment is to kill Spider-Man. The end.
So I'm just gonna say I bought this comic off the stands as a kid. I've read it 20,000 times.
Oh.
I love it. It's not perfect, but I love it. I love the art. I love the story. Not quite as good as the last issue, but I got a feeling Cousin Brandon has a different opinion, so we're going to start with Cousin Brandon. What'd you think of this one?
So I have a couple of thoughts. Number one, reaffirms that MJ is a fucking fox. Number two, I hated the villain for one reason. So I get what they're doing. There's sort of this comparison, like Peter Parker, hey, he's just like me. He accidentally stumbled into this power, and he's a nerd like I was in high school, and blah blah blah. I didn't like that Spider-Man has fought, God, the Hulk, Venom, whatever, and this fucking jackass is like destroying him. He's taking him down because of his electricity. Come on.
Wow.
Like I hate that bullshit. I don't like watching or reading these comic books when I've seen you do shit where this guy you should go boop and be done with them. Like that's the stuff I can't stand. The artwork was fine. The rest of it was fine. I see the comparison, but in general, fuck this. Not a big fan. Not a big fan.
Wait. One thing though, if this guy really does have the power to control electricity and he is a bad guy in a comic book, shouldn't he be a formidable threat to make the story more interesting?
He should be, but he's already got Electrode, number one, and B, I'm saying that the idea that he has fought and destroyed all of these other villains, and he's like, man, this is the guy that's going to kill me and kill my wife and go. It's like a high school kid. What are we doing?
I kind of agree with you in one sense. I think that giving him electricity powers makes zero sense.
Wow.
It's not something that he was like doing, or like it's not something he was like an expert in, or like studying. It was like robotics and tech. So give him like a suit that he's built that's indestructible.
Yeah.
That
like that.
Peter's having a hard time like destroying because it's built with some sort of technology that he's come up with. It's really weird and out of left field that they would give him like electro powers all of a sudden, I think. Especially like the flimsy reason of like turning the light switch on. It's very strange.
That I'll give you. That's ridiculous.
Especially since they've already said he in last issue he already had a robot. So like, why not like? They didn't even have to explain that he built himself a suit. They didn't have to. They explained that he built himself like a servo suit in this one, and it wasn't really questioned because we've already established that he's extremely smart and he has access to all this technology through his dad's company. To be clear, I actually kind of like this one.
Yeah.
The one flaw being it's weird that he has these electricity powers. It's kind of like strange how he got them and why he has them. And these interludes suck. I mean, the things that happen to them aren't necessarily like awful, but it's just so jarring to stop the story to tell a part of a different story.
All I can say, it's.
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. No, it's just.
Go ahead. Shut up. I'm talking.
This is me. This is me when I come to a four-way stop. When I come to a four-way stop, I wave people to go, and then I just go.
Yeah. If these interludes were at the end of the comic, it would be fine, right? Because it's like a teaser for something that's building. But to stop it halfway through, it makes it seem like something important is happening that's coming into this story for this conclusion. Yeah. So it's just so strange that they're putting it in the middle. Again, that's not necessarily a complaint for the story. It's just a bummer that the comic does it and like stops the story halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. And Mike L. Before you can again, I had the same reaction to that where I'm like, you clearly just don't know how to do transition because seriously, I'm like, why is this here? Like most comic, we don't have to throw subplots into the plot. Let's just have the comic. Mm-hmm. What are we doing here?
Well, I'll tell you,
it was by that.
It was a trend at the time of multi-plotting to like tease you for the next issue. So you know, and then like after 3 or 4 issues of this little subplot, it would become the main plot for one issue, right? That's just the way they did it back then. Yeah,
I think there's like good and bad ways to do that, right? Like, let's say they're like teasing that Robbie Robertson is going to become a bad guy. We can see those like small little teases or hints when Peter goes to the Bugle for things that have to do with this story, right? And then you have like small little hints of like things to come. But if you like stop, that's where it becomes like, you know, stop the story. That's where it becomes like weird and doesn't work at all for me. If that makes sense.
I gotcha. G.I. Jolie, what's your take on this one?
I agree that the electricity power is weird. His name is Freak. Oh.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
With a PH.
Right? So it gives him unlimited access to everybody, including Peter Parker's bedroom in the middle of the night. However, I will say that his costume is super freaky and I love it.
Uh-huh.
There's there's like a lot of thigh and a lot of high boot action. There, so I'm really into his costume. I guess I like the story. I didn't hate it. It's just strange that like the 16-year-old kid, 16, I'm assuming he's 16.
Something like
is that
that,
where
yeah.
we started with Peter? I find that weird that he's sort of this new villain, but that also he's able to like let new friends into his heart to allow him to heal. Super cute. I like that journey for him. I don't like the interludes. I'm not here for those. I could leave them.
Are you tantalized by the first appearance of Tombstone?
Yes.
I too thought it was cocaine.
Yeah!
Like it was weird. I was like, you know what? It's probably a gem. This is like a book for not drug users. Like, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be doing that. But I'm like, is this like a metaphor or is this a stand-in for cocaine? Is that how? What does he do? What is this thing he's doing with women? I don't get that part. Who is this dude? Even?
He does become the persuader, I think. So we're gonna find out soon enough.
Okay. I mean, he's super cute. Like a Conway. Tombstone looks like a tombstone.
How dare you disrespect my boy?
No, I mean it's kind of great. Like, does he also have like a silver plated grill? Because he sort of smiles a little.
Yeah, he's got like sharp.
I think he has like shark teeth. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm more concerned with down there. You know what I'm saying?
Hey.
Is it
Oh.
okay?
Same.
Yeah, it's like he's giving me Undertaker, but like also the brush cut is very like, which one was it? M. Bison and Street Fighter that had the brush cut?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah. He looks
For the
like a
record-
video game character. Scary.
Aesthetically, always my favorite part of Tombstone was the hair. I thought that
Yeah.
was awesome. I always like how that was depicted. So anyway.
Yeah. Like ex-military energy. It's funny that Robbie Robertson just happens to see him there. Like out of nowhere. And that's what ends the interlude. So Robbie Robertson is familiar with Tombstone?
Well, we're gonna find
Yeah.
out. We don't know anything yet, but we're gonna find out.
Oh, okay. So I noticed there wasn't a reference this issue of Spider-Man from 50 billion years ago, but okay. New action. I get it.
I'll
Yeah,
just say
all in
one
all.
quick thing. I did some research in the last 30 seconds, and I found out that the reason Gerry Conway created this character and tied him into Joe Robertson is because he wanted to focus on supporting characters that were not used in Amazing Spider-Man. So he said he couldn't use Aunt May or Mary Jane or J. Jonah Jameson, so he just picked Robbie Robertson because he was sort of like a lower tier supporting character. And this storyline coming up became so popular in The Office that like when the new issues of Spectacular would come out, all the people in the Marvel bullpen would want to read this comic to find out what was going to happen next with Tombstone and Robbie Robertson. So
Wow.
we'll see what happens. Yep. Anyway, Bex Luthor, what do you think of this issue of Web of Spider-Man?
I liked it.
Me too.
Also, the guy from Street Fighter with the flat top is Guile.
Okay.
Just because you don't want to get any comments about that.
I don't want it to be wrong. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not leaving my girl Jolie to get bullied on the internet.
Yeah.
Sorry, I tweeted at you, Jilly.
Too late.
I already did it while we were talking.
I like this one. I didn't realize that Tombstone's first appearance sucked. Like, I love Tombstone, and like just my introduction to him was the 90s cartoon, and I always loved Tombstone in the 90s cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
I think Tombstone's sexy. I like his business suit gangster style.
Agreed.
But I was like, wait, he's just introduced in a car following a guy that I know also sucks. Okay. Like,
the coke dealer. Yeah.
Roland sucks. Anyway, besides that, I like all the Spider-Man MJ. What's his name? Freak Tom Petty. What's his name?
Yes.
Steve Petty.
Steve Petty. Yeah.
He's free. Free.
No, I really, really like the stuff with Peter and MJ. I especially like when MJ is kidnapped, she's not just the object to be kidnapped.
Yep.
She's like, oh, actually does stuff, because like that's the best I can hope for in some of these comics, is at least she does something. She doesn't just sit there and scream and wait to be rescued.
Right.
Like she looks for exit routes, and that kind of stuff. I enjoy that. Yeah, I think the electricity superpowers is boring. I think it would have been cool to have like a kid who can control like a technopath kind of thing. Like give him that. Like you could give him a suit like or whatever, or you could make him be able to control 80s technology, car phones and stuff. Like that'd be great. Were there car phones in the 80s yet? I don't know. I wasn't born.
I love that.
Like the idea of like fax machines and him like throwing fax machines at people. I want that. That's what I want. But now just give him electricity powers because we can draw that. That's fun. It's okay. I love his friends, or his like not friends but are friends.
Now they're
Like-
now see like this little character arc. How now they're helping him. Pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, these two characters, Jake and Rhonda, get more character development than Steve does.
Yeah.
Jake's
They're like-
just trying to fuck, by the way. That's all he's doing. Prior to that.
He's the one who was like, we gotta go help him. And she's like, my parents aren't home, but okay. She even is like,
Where that?
my parents aren't home. Good for him, you know. Safe sex, kids.
He tried to fuck her in the car. That's all I'm saying.
But I like that, like, he's like, yeah, we shit on this kid, but that's because he's an asshole. I don't want him to die. I was like, you know what? Fair. Yeah, like everyone else was saying, the interludes are kind of odd to me. The Tombstone one doesn't bother me as much because, like, as the previous ones with this Roland character, because at least, like, oh, Tombstone's watching this Roland guy, and then he's being seen by Robbie, a character in this comic book. So at least, like, it's a little bit of a tie-in versus the last couple times where this Roland guy's just been, like, in a taxi. And it's like, who is this? I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole cocaine thing, it doesn't... I know what they're trying to do because I know who this guy is. It doesn't entice me enough. I wish it was like, instead of he's like, oh, people do what I tell them to do. Like, I'll elaborate a little bit on that maybe, but also when you shove 4 panels into a comic book, there's no room for elaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the tarantula stuff, I feel like could have been, all this tarantula stuff could be the introduction to when Peter first encounters the tarantula, instead of snippets in between every issue leading up to it. Because then it's like you could have a dedicated issue to it, but I know that that's what all these issues are doing, is just putting things in it. On a lighter note, a lot of Peter Parker in his underwear. A lot of Peter Parker in his underwear.
Is that good or bad?
10 out of 10. I love that he sleeps in tidy whities and Mary Jane sleeps in a big t-shirt. Very relatable. God, Mary Jane's a fucking catch. Peter just doesn't deserve her. I don't think anyone deserves her. Mary Jane and Lois Lane are women that men just will never be able to deserve. They just can't live up to these great, like, she's so supportive. If Peter's ever mopey again, I'll be pissed because like she's like, I love that you're Spider-Man. Don't worry about it. I support you in everything that you do.
Hey Bex, can I add something to your point? Because I this is driving me crazy. The other thing that I hate, it's once again typical mopey Peter Parker felt like, woe is me, and she has to build him up constantly. Hey Pete, how about you build Mary Jane up? How about you take care of her for once? It's always about Peter, like, oh, I'm responsible. Shut the fuck up. Take care of your wife. Never. Sorry. So he never does.
She does not need him to tell her she's great. She knows.
Maybe you're right. She is great. You're right.
Everyone else in her life is constantly telling her how beautiful and wonderful she is. So.
You're right.
But I mean, also, look at him in the underwear. I think she's fine. She's doing fine.
So let's also talk. We got to talk about this art by Alex Saviuk because this is one of his. I think is this his first issue of Web? I think it is. He goes on to draw it for the next 7 years. I think the inks are sloppy, but you can see. This is actually art. This issue is really good. The way that he draws Freak when he first gets electrocuted by the guy, turning the switch on. Like, look how much energy or whatever, like pain there is in his face when he gets electrocuted. And then the shots later on when Peter Parker gets electrocuted and he's down on the ground and he's writhing in pain. I always thought that was so well done, I don't know. It's like Alex Saviuk is never trying to be cool. He's never trying to be like tough, his characters, I mean. But he's just such a great artist. I don't know. I think he really outdid himself in this issue. So I thought it was really good. Are you a fan of the art, Cousin Brandon?
For the most part, yeah, I thought it was fine. Like I wouldn't say like I'm a fan, but I thought it looked pretty good. There's one comic we're gonna talk about I did not like, but yeah, I thought this one, I thought this looked pretty good. I mean, it didn't offend me in any way, and I liked all like the paneling and everything else. So like, yeah, I was fine with it.
Okay. So the rest of us have already talked about Alex Saviuk, so we don't need to say anything more about him. But let's just talk about
actually, real quick. Yeah. There's a particular panel that I really liked when Spider-Man is being electrocuted and he's wrapped up in those wires and he finally bursts out and you see MJ like cheering for him in the background, and then in the foreground you see Freak kind of just there. It's so great because most of the time Peter's black and white costume is like black with blue highlights showing where light is reflecting, and in this it's colored as if it's colored almost opposite because there's so much electricity and light around him that his whole costume is blue and there's very minimal black where there's like just shadows of his muscles from the light. It's really good. I love the coloring in this one, and I actually went to go look to see who did the coloring for this one, and it's Janet Jackson.
Well, yeah, shocked.
Wait.
Oh my goodness,
she's slumming it.
Sorry, who?
This is 4/18/14. Anyway, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I know her name is Janet Jackson. I had never heard of her. Obviously, sorry, I've heard of Janet Jackson, but I've not heard of Janet Jackson.
This Janet Jackson,
Marvel colorist, yes. So yeah, kind of a
there you go. Control. Okay. So anyway, so I definitely recommend this issue of Web of Spider-Man colored by Janet Jackson. I think it's I bought it as a kid. I still think it's good. Cousin Brandon, do you recommend this one?
No.
Okay, Josh. Go ahead.
I recommend this one, but I recommend that you skip the interludes because unfortunately it genuinely like took me out of the story while reading it because it's just like it's so strange right in the middle of the story. But all in all, it was pretty good.
All right, G.I. Jolie.
I too am a fan of. She goes by JJ Jackson now, just because obviously if you
Confusion.
you can't really search the words Janet Jackson colorist because that's another thing in itself. But yeah, if you look her up, she's still working. She's from Texas, born in 1958. Totally awesome. Still doing colors. Still doing graphic design.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I recommend this issue. This is like the first time I haven't been like totally off-put by what I read.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think
first time
maybe
for
it has
everything.
something to, maybe it has something to do with like
Jerry Conway?
no.
Oh, okay.
There's something about the story, and it's the kids from the high school, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's partly because of Jerry Conway, because you wrote it. Because there's more Jerry Conway where that came from, right?
Sure.
Anyway.
Obviously.
All right. Bex Luthor. Do you recommend this one?
JJ Jackson draws some hot babes, and I am all about it.
Yeah.
Colors.
Hot-
She's the
hot-
colorist.
Well, no, but I'm looking at her portfolio.
Oh,
There are
shit.
hot babes
have to
and
look this up.
fire and skulls. This is one rad woman.
Okay.
Anyway, I do recommend it because there's lots of midriffs, male midriffs. Bring back the male midriff.
Mhm.
If there's
Go
two
ahead.
male midriffs, I was gonna say if there's so many female costumes that have midriffs showing, why not men? Let's bring it back. Bring back the '80s male crop top and the little shorts. I love that look.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on it.
What?
Yeah.
Mike L might know this, by the way. Wasn't JJ Jackson one of the original MTV VJs?
You know what? Here's some news for you, cousin Brandon. Canada did not have MTV in the 80s.
What? What are you talking
No!
about?
Listen to
Are
this,
you
okay?
kidding?
Listen, Canada is the only country on Earth that did not have MTV.
What are you talking about? Why?
Listen, we have laws to protect Canadian culture, and so we created much music so that to protect Canadian content. So we were the only country, as far as I know, on Earth that did not have MTV.
I mean, they
I had no idea.
Yeah. Isn't that
yeah,
great?
unless you had like a satellite dish, like a giant satellite dish in your
Yeah.
backyard, you could get MTV.
My God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
There are laws in Canada that
Oh,
Mhm.
stations and everything have to play a certain amount of Canadian content. So they do as much Canadian content as possible. It's the same for radio stations here. You have to play a certain amount of Canadian artists, like legally. Like you have to
oh
do that.
my God.
Yeah, even
I bet you've all seen the peanut butter solution.
No, what's
No.
that?
No.
The Canadian film. You've not seen this?
Really?
I don't know.
Hold on. Wait.
It's the peanut butter solution.
See, that's the other thing too, is that they don't also they say we have to participate if you're like pumping out content, you know, whatever. If you're controlling the content, but they don't push it on us because they're
That
just
is
polite about it.
Oh, so
Peanut
this
butter
is
solution.
a kids film, right?
yeah.
And it stars Michael Hogan from Battlestar Galactica. I'm in.
I cannot believe you all have not seen this. It's a fucking terrible movie.
Oh, okay. But wait, who was it? Who was it who has seen every episode of Degrassi Junior High? Was that you or Degrassi?
Me and the wife. Yep.
That's amazing.
We love it.
I've seen this movie.
Yeah, I remember it.
This is the one where the kid's hair doesn't stop growing, right?
Yes,
Yep.
it's great. Yes.
I googled it and I was like, I recognize this old man.
This features the first English language song performed by Celine Dion. Wow.
Oh my God.
You guys have to watch this movie.
All right. Well, maybe we can review it on what's it called? LCS Hockey.
I
Yeah.
don't remember it being good. I remember they didn't have a
It's not-
mom.
Nope. It's really depressing and it's really weird. It's bananas.
Yeah,
It's giving me
bananas.
like Thunderpants vibes.
Underpants.
Yeah, the kid whose superpower is farting, so he becomes an astronaut to help.
Oh,
Right.
Yes. Okay, I know
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kid who plays Yick on Degrassi is in this.
Yeah, we
the
only
only
have
Asian in Degrassi's
Yeah.
name is Yick. Ugh.
We only have actors that are been on Degrassi in Canada. That's how it works.
Degrassi is banana. So, because I have an eternal love for Beverly Hills 90210, but there's
90210.
there is a weird, I forget what the connection is, but there is a connection between the two shows where was going to do the Canadian, or there's some, I forget what it is, but there is a tie between the two shows. 90210, I'll talk all day with you. You want to do after the Spider-Cast, you want to do every episode of 90210, call me.
Perfect.
Okay. We still have to get through this episode of Spider-Cast, though. So,
We got derailed.
Bex
Who would've thought?
Luthor, do you recommend this one?
Yeah, I said I gave it 2 out of 2 midriffs.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay, so
Remember, I
we're
was talking
done
about men.
with Web of Spider-Man. Okay, guys, this could be argued to be the main event of the week, depending on who you ask. We are now about to review the first ever issue of Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane. Amazing Spider-Man number 298. Todd McFarlane had just come off his run on The Incredible Hulk with Peter David. And before that, he had done a run on Infinity Incorporated at DC Comics. At this point, he was becoming a superstar. I remember I bought this issue because of the art. And he quickly became, my favorite artist and all of my friends' favorite artist. And whether or not you like him, he was definitely someone that stood out. And I think he was one of the first artists of this time that became popular outside of the comics medium. It seems like everybody knew who he was, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyway,
it's clear. It's only penciled by Todd McFarlane. He doesn't start writing Spidey till the 90s, I believe.
Oh, true. Of course.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. He draws it for 2 years on Amazing. Then he becomes his own writer. But at this point, he's only an artist. Yes.
Yeah.
Probably for the better.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later. And Bex Luthor, right? You're going to summarize this one?
I can do that, yeah. So congratulations, Todd McFarlane. The first character you draw on a Spidey cover is Chance. So cool. Does everyone remember Chance?
I do.
He was here once before.
Yeah, I barely remember him from last time we talked about him.
Yeah, he didn't stand out as much as he tried. So we start off the issue with some shady-looking guys in suits protecting some rich dude, and then Chance shows up and starts shooting them and kills a man in a fiery explosion and flies off. So cool of him. We switch back over to character I actually care about, Mary Jane Watson. She's in the middle of a modeling shoot and she's wearing a bunch of fun outfits, so that's good. She's having a conversation with her makeup artist, I believe, which is the first time we see her. And she leaves a message for Peter saying that they're going to get, if they act on it now, they can get the cool new apartment that she wants to get, which is in the fancy area of town. And so Peter isn't home, but he calls his house and he checks his messages and gets the message from Mary Jane. And of course he's like, oh, I'm going to get this really expensive apartment in the Upper East Side, but I can't afford it. And everyone's like, your wife is rich. And he's like, oh, but I'm not. And is super pissy about it for the rest of the issue. Which is unfortunate. But yeah, so he's like, do you got any work for me? Robbie says no. Joy comes over and she's like, I got some work for you. I'm covering an execution, but can you go check out what's going on at the docks tonight? There's some illegal gun trade going on. And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So Spidey swings off. He goes back to his apartment where Mary Jane's stuff is everywhere because she has not even unpacked yet, moving into his apartment. And he sees one of the People magazines with a hunky dude on it. And he's like, you know what? I got an idea. I'm going to surprise my wife with a hunky dude. And so Mary Jane shows up at home and Peter is in his underwear again. And he's got a whole little dinner planned for it. It's very cute. But Mary Jane brought her coworker home after work. And so Spidey has to rush out in his underwear after both these ladies have seen him. We cut over to, who is this guy? I don't remember his name. Probably not important.
Oh. Wait, where?
The guy.
Nicholas Powell?
Sure. Yeah, it's like I don't. Oh yeah, it's Chance, but that's his real name.
Oh, his secret identity, yeah.
Yeah, so he's having dinner with a woman that we probably will never see again, and he gets a call and has to leave. So he suits up as Chance and he goes off to go meet with the people who are calling him. Back at Peter and Mary Jane's apartment, they're having dinner. Mary Jane's coworker leaves, and then Peter and Mary Jane have sex. Good job. Back at the Life Foundation, which is the first inclusion of the Life Foundation and Carlton Drake, which probably more people know what the hell that is now because of the Venom movie. So, spoilers. As soon as I was like, oh yeah, the Life Foundation, I remember that, and I was like, oh yeah, the Life Foundation. So like now it's just anybody reading this for the first time will immediately know what these people are up to. So they're talking about how they've hired Chance to kill some dude for them, and some of the businessmen are cool with it, some are not. Chance shows up, and Chance's whole deal is that he doesn't take money for hits. He bets on himself. So if he succeeds, he gets paid, and if he doesn't get paid, which is how jobs work. So I
think the difference is he would owe them money.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay. He's like, if I do this, you'll pay me. And they're like, yes, we will.
Yeah, he's a little dramatic.
And they're like, and if I fail, I'll pay you. And they're like, okay, sounds good.
Man, we need to get more people like this on the team.
Yeah. Then all these like rich old white dudes are like, that kid's fucked up, eh? And they're like, yeah, but you know, if he dies doing it, then he'll give us money somehow. So they're like, yeah, make sure you get these guns because we want all of these guns from this ship. And Chance is like, I don't supply guns to terrorists. And then the guys are like, what if we told you we weren't terrorists? And he's like, good enough for me. So he flies off to do to supply the not terrorists with guns. Sorry. And he starts just shooting at people, and Spidey's there because he's trying to cover this for the Bugle. And good thing he was there. And so he's like, well, better start webbing this camera up to get some sick pictures. And in his attempt to get some sick pics of his fight with Chance, because he wrongly assumes that Chance only kills people that he's being paid to kill. So he thinks that everybody here will be safe because he's only after the guns. But Chance is kind of a dick. So he shoots a guy, and Peter feels bad about it, even though he didn't shoot anybody. So Chance gets away. I don't know if he steals anything or if he just gets away, but one of the guys is hurt. And there's a little scuffle. Yeah, sorry, got ahead of myself. There was a little scuffle between Spider-Man and Chance. And in order for Chance to get away, he drops a bunch of barrels on people because he knows Spider-Man will have to save the people instead of going after him. Chance goes back to the Life Foundation where he just gets obliterated by a pen. It's a sentence. Yeah, they electrocute him because he was trying to sign it. They're like, oh, yeah, it's all cool. We just need you to sign this for like payroll. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. And then grabs the pen, and it's like a electrocuted pen. So they're like, well, he's not dead yet. It's like, we'll just kill him then, but whatever. We switch back over to Peter Parker and Mary Jane's apartment where Peter is feeling bad for himself again, and Mary Jane is there to support him again. He's like, I put that man in danger for money. And she's like, I don't care that you don't have money. I have money. Mary Jane Watson, world famous supermodel. And he's like, I guess you're right. And then fade to black, they have sex again. And then epilogue, there is a incredibly scrumptious buff man in front of a bunch of pictures. Who could this be?
Guess who?
There's a guy standing in a dilapidated apartment with a bunch of pictures of Spider-Man that he's clipped from newspapers, talking about how Spider-Man his life's been shattered. And then in the very last panel, his hands get covered in a black Spidey suit. And this is another first appearance issue,
That's right.
right? First
Yes.
official appearance, I believe.
Of Venom, yeah.
Because we've seen his hand before. He pushed. This is the same guy who pushed Peter Parker into a train.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that.
That is that.
So I'm actually going to ask G.I. Jolie to start. G.I. Jolie, this is Todd McFarlane's first issue, and this is also the first appearance of Venom. What was your take on this issue?
Spoilers!
Huh?
Spoilers! We didn't know it was Venom yet.
Oh, sorry.
Just a really, really jacked dude who hates Spider-Man.
Blob McLeod's inking saves the art once again. Let's see.
Well,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Let's talk about McFarlane's art. What is? I mean, this blew.
I mean,
my
I'm not.
socks off.
I don't want to like specifically talk about the art. I just thought you brought up Todd McFarlane because like that would be part of my first assessment of this. I don't know. I don't understand how Mary Jane, after having married Peter, has suddenly become like this whole complete character, and he has just regressed into a puddle. Like Peter has.
Uh-huh.
Like, why? It's always something with him. And the issue now that he's married to before the issue was women and his relationships with women, and now he's in a married relationship with a woman. Now the issue is his job insecurity, which doesn't appear or his perceived notion of like his masculine role in their married relationship. Like, she keeps telling him it doesn't freaking matter. They've got tons of money and he should be like, without saying stop working, she's saying like he really doesn't have to worry. Yet he continuously does not verbalize that that's his issue with their relationship, or that's an issue that he has. That he thinks that it should be like a 50-50 partnership. He doesn't ever say it. He just bitches about it and moans about it. I don't know.
Yeah, it is really strange because it feels like it would be a perfect solution to his problem, right? Like, he can work part-time at the Bugle and have that cover of a job while being a full-time Spider-Man and being supported by his wife. Yeah. Right? Like, it doesn't, yeah, it's really strange that
and
he's so like...
Yeah, especially since his wife is hanging out with him while he's in a Spider-Man costume. Like, she knows you're Spider-Man. It's not like you're hiding it from her.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. And she is independently like wealthy. Who cares? Like, it is. Josh, like Josh said, it's the perfect cover. I don't know why he's not okay with this.
Because I am a man. Man make money. Support host.
Because he's an 80s man. And even in the 2000s, some people feel that way, you know? That's just the way it is.
But all
I would kill for a rich wife.
This could just be solved with having an actual conversation about it.
Yeah, but then you'd have to talk about your feelings. Anyway. Okay, wait. Bex Luthor, what do you think of this issue?
Not great. Not great, Mike.
Okay, Josh.
Shout out to Joy Mercado coming back for one panel to tell us.
Yeah, she got like a...
Sorry, go ahead.
Does she have a different hairstyle?
Well, yeah, because McFarlane's drawing her.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like even MJ's got like a new look going on.
Changed everybody, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, her hair's not straight in this. Excuse me, Todd McFarlane, but MJ has straight across bangs, not these curtain fringes, but whatever. again, I actually like the Peter Mary Jane stuff, but I think it's because I like the idea of Mary Jane being like, "Shut up, you dumb idiot, let's make out." I find that funny. I find it interesting that she's like, "Stop moping," and then just like takes him to the bedroom because she's like, "That'll solve it." Like she's not talking either. She's not like, "Oh, what's wrong?" I love that he dressed up in his underwear for her. That's pretty cute. That was pretty cute. Who cares about Chance? Nobody.
Me.
Okay, one person. One person cares about Chance. Good for you. Yeah, it's a whole lot of nothing. It's a whole lot of nothing. Like, we're introducing the Life Foundation and Carlton Drake, and I don't know when that stuff starts taking. Is it anytime soon? Or is that like later stuff? Literally the only good thing about this entire issue is the last page.
So, okay, what do you think about Todd McFarlane's art?
Look, I like it. It's not my favorite.
Okay.
I'm trying to be really quiet because my partner's in the next room, and I don't want to be broken up with for saying I don't like it. It's not that I don't like it. I think it's everyone talks about how innovative he was at the time. This is boring.
Boring?
I'm sorry. I'm bored. There's so many just like dudes. I'm bored of the dudes. I don't know. None of the panels are interesting to me unless it's Mary Jane's fashion. Like I don't care.
What about the way he draws Spidey when he's swinging around?
I don't feel like it's that different than anything else I've seen. It's just I know it gets better.
Yeah, it definitely does get better. Yeah.
I think it has to do with this story as well. This really nothing happens in this issue, like story wise. It's all like weird small plot points. I feel like that are leading to something bigger. Like Chance feels like he's just here just so we can set up this foundation and then like incapacitate him by the end. And Spider-Man needs somebody to punch, so let's throw him in there. So like there's a lot of just people talking in boardroom, which is kind of like whatever. Even the stuff with Peter having his own like personal issues, and then her friend coming over for dinner. Like it's not a lot of like big things happening. It's a lot of just people talking this issue. But I do like Todd McFarlane. I think that for the most part, his stuff is really good and dynamic and fun. Some of the panels to me stick out to being great. I am probably a little bit biased because this is the stuff that I mostly read as a kid. So like this is like the Spider-Man that I grew up with in the comics. So I really like this stuff. When Peter's like swinging, and I love the introduction of the spaghetti web. I feel like he really pushes Spider-Man's poses. Like a lot of them might be kind of the same, but for some reason his just feel more like
Dynamic,
and it's almost like he's crunching him up into the shape of a spider at times.
right?
Like I really love this when he's swinging away from the bugle and the camera's on a Dutch tilt, and like it's just I don't know. I feel like there's so many things that are so much more dynamic. I think sometimes where Todd McFarlane kind of falls short is faces,
Sure.
especially when there's a lot of people sitting around and talking and doing nothing, and when it's a lot of like the same faces over and over again, it can be kind of sloppy, I guess, and like it feels like it's kind of rushed along. But the panels that are focused on, you can tell, and there's a lot of like thought and dedication I find in his work when he's like passionate about a panel or a page or something that's happening. And then the other things, it feels like almost just like rushing to get to the good stuff.
Yep.
But no, I'm super happy to see that we're finally getting to his stuff. Even later on when Chance is like flying around the shipyard, there's some really great stuff. A couple of like of those like really simple panels, like where we see Spider-Man's upside down and his spider sense is going off. It's like a completely red panel, and it's just like the black outline of him. Even like the spider's sense squiggles are in black. Stuff like that. His panels, I find, are very like narrow and tall, and
Some of them,
and it almost feels like it's the same amount of panels as any other comic, but because they're like tall and narrow, it almost feels like at times like the action is happening quicker because you're seeing it like in succession of these like tall panels. So it kind of at times for me feels like action is happening quicker. So it kind of adds to his very like dynamic style of doing art and his way of like telling stories through like the action sequences. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to read more
McFarlane.
Amazing, yeah.
All right, cousin Brandon, what's your take on this issue?
So I have some thoughts, and I have to preface this by saying, unfortunately, I have to drop off after this.
What?
I have to go. I have to take care of something, unfortunately. So let me just begin by saying the Spectacular Spider-Man episode was the worst comic, worst drawn of the three, maybe, but the best story of the three. I just want to put that out there. Number one. So second of all, I love this comic, and I'll tell you what. Number one, Todd McFarlane fucking ruined me. He changed like comic books for me. This came out, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I'm sorry. It was mind-boggling. I'm like, everything was just like, okay, blah blah blah, and I'm like, and everything was fine. It was fine. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. For him to be able to take Spider-Man, who I adored, the webbing alone, which I would call cable, like it looked like a cable.
Sure.
Blew my mind. I could not believe how cool it looked. Number one, and so what Josh was just talking about too. There are times in this comic where I'm like, the artwork looks like shit at times, and it's mainly when like there was a lot of people and it was like kind of lazy looking, and I'm like, what is this? The thing I think I realized from this comic that he does so well, I love looking at a character in profile. Todd McFarlane, when he is looking at somebody in profile, is amazing. Like I don't get it, but that to me, if I like go back and look at this comic, and it's incredible. There's something so sinister and detailed and perfect about looking at somebody's face in profile the way he draws it. The paneling, I love. I completely agree with what Josh was saying, that like it's just different. Like I'm like so, because again, I'm reading these comics through that link that you sent me where you know, okay, I scroll down, I click to the right, I go. I'm scrolling down and I'm like, wait a minute, there's 5 mini panels at the bottom of the screen? I'm like, what is this? I'm like, it's just so different. And again, and I know it's because I'm nostalgic for it, because I read these comics in real time. So like when Amazing Spider-Man 298 came out, I lost my mind. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. So it changed comic books for me forever. My biggest complaint, though, there was too much interior monologue by Chance. I'm like, why are we so focused on what Chance has to say? And like, who can, like, hey, Chance, it's not the Amazing Chance. It's the amazing Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is so much time spent on what he's thinking, and like, oh, well, my costume picked that up at 180 degrees. It's like, who fucking down? Like, what are we doing? Like, it's not your comic book. It's Spider-Man's comic book. I don't give a shit. And I want to say this too to Bex. Love the MJ's modeling stuff. Her outfits kind of sucked. They weren't great. I was not a big fan of her outfits. I love that she was doing fashion shoots. I'm like, they did her dirty. I didn't like it. Not a big fan of like what she was. She's a babe. They made her look like she was like a 75-year-old woman. I'm like, what are they doing to her? She's a fox. It's MJ. Don't like it. So, in general, like, this was my favorite of the three that we read because of the artwork. Best story is the Peter Parker.
I agree. The Peter Parker is by far the best story, but I got to say one thing before you leave. When I was a kid, Todd McFarlane blew my mind and changed comics forever, and I started to draw like him. But now that I'm an adult, I actually think Sal Buscema's art on Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, is better.
So is this the person who did the one we read?
Yeah, the Sin Eater one. I think he's actually a better artist than Todd McFarlane.
That's funny because I thought that was the worst of the artwork.
I know. That's why I'm pointing it out. I think it's.
I don't understand that though. Like, why is that? Why do you think that?
Because I'll tell you why. Because all of the weaknesses Todd McFarlane has with the storytelling, Sal Buscema doesn't have that. Like Sal Buscema, if Sal Buscema draws a guy standing there, and Todd McFarlane draws a guy standing there, maybe Todd McFarlane's looks better and prettier and more dynamic. But Sal Buscema is an old school storyteller, and so every panel tells the story. It pushes the story forward and gives you information, whereas Todd McFarlane's might be more dynamic and more interesting, but there's panels where you're like, what is going on? And it might not look right, the anatomy's wrong, right? So don't get me wrong, I love Todd McFarlane, but I think Sal Buscema is more professional and more polished.
Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stick around for this now. I really do have to go, but like I said, we're gonna talk about this.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm in. Fine.
Okay, let's quickly say I recommend this issue of Amazing, obviously, for many reasons. G.I. Julie, do you recommend it?
Yeah, just flip through it. You're going to need to, if you like Spidey and Todd McFarlane, you're going to need to know about it. So have a quick flip. Of no consequence to any storyline, but definitely use your eyeballs.
Awesome. Okay, Bex Luthor.
Yeah, read it. I mean, Todd McFarlane might not be my favorite artist of all time, but he gave me absolute himbo Eddie Brock. So,
all right. Joshua Mervell.
Yeah, this is a definite recommend. The story's not the best, and I think it's kind of dull, and it feels more of like setup for other things going on. But I feel like it's a staple for Amazing, and it's not that bad where I wouldn't recommend it. And then, Todd McFarlane's art.
Okay.
Gonna push it to a recommend.
Okay, Cousin Brandon, do you recommend it?
Obviously, I mean, first McFarlane. I used to own this comic. I'm assuming McLeod did as well.
Oh, I bought it off the stands. Yep.
I did too, and like I said, it blew my mind. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, now we're gonna jump to the Spectacular Spider-Man number 135, and I'm gonna summarize this one. Wait, 136, right?
Yeah, 136.
136, yes. Which is part 3 of the Sin Eater saga. This is the showdown with the Sin Eater, the deadly conclusion. We got this great cover here of Sin Eater holding a gun to a little kid's head, saying, "Stay back, Spider-Man, or I'll shoot this kid." And then we open up with a nice little pun on the word sin. It's sinister, right, with a hyphen. We get a little summary of the last issue, and we see Peter Parker sticking to the wall of his apartment, ruminating on everything that's going on with Stan Carter, with Electro. He's lost to Electro twice now because he doesn't have the confidence to fight back, because he crippled Stan Carter like a couple years ago out of revenge for Stan Carter murdering Jean DeWolf, right? So we get this really cool gag where MJ hands Peter Parker a paper, and she's like, "Don't sweat it, Petey. You have my personal guarantee that there's not a thing in there that'll upset you." And he opens up the newspaper, and the first 3 articles have all been cut out of the front, right? She's just looking out for him. So anyway, so then we get a little flashback to Peter Parker crippling Sin Eater, just to remind the readers of what's going on. And then all of a sudden the power goes out. He's like, "Hey, what's going on? There's a power outage. I better go find out what's going on." So then we cut over to Stan Carter doing like a, what is this called? Like a audio diary, I guess. I don't know.
He's dictating his autobiography.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. He's dictating his autobiography. And he's talking about, this is kind of where, I don't think we realized this before, but like we obviously know that Sin Eater is a separate personality, but this is where he basically describes that he heard the Sin Eater's voice for the first time around the time that he became a mass murderer. So he hints at the fact that him and Jean DeWolf were lovers again, but then as he's talking about, the night that that he first came, he's like, "And that night I first him calling me the first time, is that what you voyeurs all wanted to know?" And then all of a sudden we hear another voice, "Oh, Stan, I've got something for you." And we see the Sin Eater carrying the dead body of Jean DeWolf, and then Stan Carter throws the tape recorder at him, and then we see this chilling shot of Sin Eater. He's like, I don't know this song, but maybe you do, Cousin Brandon, but he's like, "I met my lover on the street last night. Come on, Stan, sing along." And the tape recorder just goes through him because obviously he's just a vision. And then the dead body of Jean DeWolf joins into the song. Still crazy after all these years. I think this might be a Paul Simon song. But anyway. So yeah. So then there's a priest. Oh, this is the priest he killed. Then there's the judge he killed. And they're all surrounding him. And then he picks up his gun. He's like, "Stay back. Don't touch me or I'll kill you." And he picks up the gun. And then he realizes, oh no. He looks down at the gun, and then we see a giant Sin Eater face. "Oh yes, you fool. I've already won. You never had a chance." Then we cut to a scene of a guy and a girl in a traffic jam. Oh, the woman is pregnant. Spider-Man comes in and realizes that they're stuck in a traffic jam, so he's going to help her. So he carries her off to a hospital. Then he goes back to confront Electro, and we see Electro's threatening the city. He's like, "I'm gonna, cut all the power of the city and kill all these people and blah, blah, blah." So then Spider-Man comes in, stops some kids from looting like a electronic store. Spidey confronts Stan Carter one more time, and Stan Carter's like, "Maybe you're right. I don't know. What I do know is you're afraid you might snap. You can't trust yourself. What you have to do is handle a situation and control yourself. No one can exercise your personal demons for you. You have to do it." So he's like, okay. He's like, "Well, you've convinced me. I'm going to go exercise a demon I know." So he swings away, and then Stan Carter's like, "Yes, I think I'm going to do the same." And he puts on the Sin Eater mask. Oh no. So then we cut over to Spider-Man swinging in, and the public is kind of turned against him because he choked twice against Electro. But there's one kid that still believes in him. He's like, "Hey, Spidey, you gonna beat up Electro?" And he's like, "You bet." Then Spider-Man goes in, and the cops are trying to stop him, but he's like, "Screw you." He jumps in, and he starts mouthing off to Electro, and Electro is trying to mouth back. And then we get this cool shot of is this Chris Keating, or who's this police chief here? I don't know who he is. York. But he's Torque. But he's like, idiot, walking in there, talking on that high voltage, taking on that high voltage lunatic. He deserves what he gets. I hope he's okay. Then we cut back to that same kid that was rooting on Spider-Man, and he's walking, and he comes to like a little corner of a building, and we see this foot coming around the building, and all of a sudden the kid looks up, and we see it's the Sin Eater holding a shotgun. The Sin Eater looks down and says, "Shouldn't you be in school?" Then we cut back to Spider-Man fighting Electro. And so Spider-Man's been goading Electro to come in to take him on in a fist fight, not just use his powers. So the fighting back and forth. Then we were intercutting with the Sin Eater holding a gun to the kid's head. And Spider-Man is, trying to get Electro to punch him. Electro takes a swing. He ducks. Spider-Man ducks, punches him back, and he's like, "All right, I've got my mojo back." Then we cut back to Sin Eater and the cops. They're trying to convince him to let the kid go. We cut back to Spider-Man fighting Electro. Spider-Man rips open a water pipe, which is Electro's weakness. And then Spider-Man also throws some webbing down, which makes Electro stick to the ground. He turns around. Spider-Man is winding up to hit him. Just at that moment, Sin Eater tosses the kid out of the way. Spider-Man clocks Electro, knocks him over, and the cops all take a shot at Sin Eater. Sin Eater falls against the wall. Spider-Man's walking out with Electro all wrapped up in web. Sin Eater's down for the count, full, of bullets. And then we see from Stan Carter's point of view, the vision of the Sin Eater is fading away. Carter, you fool! What have you done? What have you done? And then we realize it's actually Spider-Man that's calling to him. Stan, what have you done? And then Stan says, I won. Sin Eater's dead. Now I can live. And then he dies. Then Spider-Man says he was so far gone, he thought Sin Eater and he were two different people. And then the police captain says, in that case, Carter had the last laugh. He never loaded Sin Eater's gun. The end. And I'm with you, Cousin Brandon. This one was by far the best story this week. I thought it was awesome. And we're going to let you go first because I know you're kind of in a rush. So tell us, what'd you think of this one?
Yeah, so in general, again, I didn't read the prior book or two because I think it was building off of something. But again, I read it. I thought it was dark as shit. I mean, it was really heavy. But I thought it was the best story of the three. It was a straight up bummer. I really enjoyed it. But again, so for me, and this is why I wanted to stick around, I thought the artwork sucked. I thought it was so bad. I hated it. Like, it just seemed lazy. It seemed like we're not going to really fully draw people. We're not going to really draw the scenes that are happening. We're just kind of like, whatever. Also, I'm still trying to decide if I like the whole Rocky 3 show. Take a beating. And then, like, I guess I kind of like that. I mean, it worked out with, like, Peter and Electro. But in general, like, I remember buying this comic because I remember the cover. Like, it really... I saw it and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one. But yeah, overall, like I said, I thought the story was good. I thought it was dark as shit. I just thought it looked terrible. I just wasn't a fan. I didn't like the aesthetic. So. All
right. Okay. Joshua Mervell, what'd you think of this issue?
This is definitely the best of the three in this 3-part story. I think that the first two were almost unneeded. Like, the only thing we needed to set up was the fact that Peter's having trouble fighting bad guys because he realized that he overdid it with Sin Eater. That's all we needed. We didn't need the stuff where Sin Eater saved him in the middle of the street, or like him, or like him talking to MJ after he got burnt in the last issue. It just felt like they're trying to redeem Sin Eater and make him into a good guy, where if they would have just leaned into him being a shitty dude that's also trying to, like, fix himself, rather than him being the innocent dude. No, it wasn't me. It was this alter ego guy. Trust me, Sin Eater's a different person than me. I feel like it would have been more of a success, and I would have liked this whole arc. But that being said, I think this is a really good ending to the Sin Eater story. A really nice, sad, conclusive way for this character to, like, be done. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know what else there is to say besides, yeah, it was a pretty solid story. And I don't think there was anything, like, extra that needed to be cut in this issue. That's like, it was very to the point, and everything that happened led to the next thing, and it all had a purpose, and it was a really solid final chapter to this 3-part story.
And now, what'd you think about the art?
It's good. Yeah, the same Sal Buscema. I feel like I when you compare it to something like Todd McFarlane, I think the big difference is Sal Buscema, while there are definitely things that you can point out that he does, I think that he is still trying to emulate that Jack Kirby Spider-Man story, that look.
Well, Jack Kirby never drew Spider-Man. Do you mean John Romita? Or...
John Romita. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. But that like classic Spider-Man story, or that Spider-Man look, and it almost feels like that, but it's kind of his own. Where Todd McFarlane was just like, no, I'm doing my own thing. This is my Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm drawing it the way I want to tell this story. So I think maybe that's where the difference for me is. Like, this one doesn't feel like it has as much style or like a look to it, because it's just the Marvel look.
Sure.
So, but it was good. Yeah, I don't think everything was pretty clear. Nothing in the layouts was like confusing, or I had to go back and reread or anything.
Right.
It is just, for the most part, like 6 square panels on a page, or like 2 long panels, 3 tall panels.
Well, yeah, and I want to point out the sequence where Sin Eater is sliding down the wall and Peter and Spider-Man's walking out is one of my favorites in the whole book. Right, those 2 parallel scenes. In fact, the whole ending where we're cutting back and forth between the 2 parallel scenes going on, I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bex Luthor, what'd you think of this issue?
Yeah.
You have to get back to reviewing comics. No more Pokemon Go or whatever rap music you're listening to.
Yes, me, the coolest kid, listening to the hippest of hop. Actually, I was reading Spider-Man Wikipedia, so...
Okay. So it's kind of related.
Yeah. I was doing research for what I was going to say about this comic. I didn't like it.
Oh.
I do not give a shit about the Sin Eater. And I don't know. The whole Electro thing, like... Spider-Man's a coward because he didn't punch a man who wasn't doing anything. Like, Electro just showed up on the Regis Philbin show, and he's like, hey, Spider-Man, aren't you going to fight me? And Spider-Man looks around at all the civilians. He's like, no. And now he's like, what a coward. Like, I just don't get why Peter's upset about at all, and why the news is calling him a coward. And I just... Good. Yeah, Stan, you're real. You fucked up.
What about the scenes of like Sin Eater appearing and like talking to him and trying to psych him out and singing the song and carrying the dead body? What about that stuff?
Snooze fest.
Are you kidding me? Haunting, like chilling. How can you not be haunted by that?
We just found out that he was boning Jean DeWolf in the last issue, and then we thought maybe he was going to go into it and, like, let us know, and then he doesn't.
Yeah, but, okay, what about the scene I just described, though, of Sin Eater trying to get him to sing along with them? And, I just thought that was amazing.
It doesn't matter when we didn't even know that she played any part in his psychosis.
But why do you need that to matter when... I've read this 1,000 times and that's never mattered one bit. It's just a chilling scene to see this vision of his alter ego carrying the dead body of his former lover to him and asking him to sing along to a song. You don't find that...
It's also... No, I don't find it chilling because it's not apparent that they're singing either.
Well, what do you mean it's not apparent?
I didn't get that till you... I mean, there's like musical marks and stuff.
Yeah.
Still crazy after all these years, whatever. I don't know.
He also says sing along. He's, come on, Stan, sing along. So
again, it's not effective.
It's another man being haunted by his literal own actions, and I don't feel bad for him at all. You should feel bad.
But if it was a woman, you'd feel bad for her? If she was
they don't
haunted by
write
her
women
actions?
like this, though.
No, but if there
saying.
was though, you'd be haunted. That'd be okay then?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this, like, I don't feel bad for him. I wouldn't feel bad for a woman if she was in the same position. But unfortunately, in media, women are depicted as constantly murdering their lovers and then being sympathetic because, you didn't mean to. It was his alter ego. I don't care. Look,
Well, it gets you off in Canada, unfortunately, as we learned a few weeks ago. But anyway,
I don't know what you're talking about.
remember the guy who cut off the guy's
no.
head and ate? Oh,
Stop!
okay.
No.
Okay.
Every week you bring up the guy, cut off the guy's head.
Well, don't worry. Sin Eater's dead now, so I won't bring it up anymore.
Yeah. He doesn't ever come back. I like the Sin Eater that comes back. Is what
Does he come back? I thought he was dead. Okay.
I
think it's a different person, right?
No. So,
Oh.
yes, you are correct also. But also the Sin Eater I'm talking about is in the early 2000s where Sarah and Gabriel Stacy, the clone children of Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn, go to hell and recruit him.
Oh, that sounds like a great story.
It's actually rad.
Right.
Because Harry was using them to get back at Peter by making him believe that his father had sex with Gwen Stacy and she cheated on him and they had children. And then the children rapidly age and then they get merged with demons. And then they go to hell and Mephisto keeps them alive. Oh, and it's okay. I'm not explaining.
That sounds awesome.
Look, I want to lie and say I'm not interested in everything Becca's saying, but I am. Compared to this, I am, and I want to read that Sin Eater. Though I'm not. Sorry, I mean this is I'm shoehorning myself into Becca's.
Shoo away.
Into Becca's review, but like, just because I don't think that this one scene is effective doesn't mean that I don't think that the actual way that they write him out of the story isn't. It's sad, and it works. How he was able to solve the problem by taking himself out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
It is heartbreaking for a man to have to do that, but it was weird that like the two stories before this gave us what they did, and then they gave us this, and then I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts that aren't like coming together correctly, but so I'll shut up now.
No, I definitely see what you guys are both saying. I think that looking at just this issue, I think it's super effective, and you kind of get what's going through his mind and how he's tortured. And they don't use it as an excuse in this one. Like in this issue, he doesn't have like a pity party, right? Like they're not trying to make him sympathetic. They show him and the fact that he did all these shitty things, and now he's choosing to pay for those actions. Where before, leading up to this, they tried to convince us that, oh, he's not such a bad guy. Look, it was just his it was just the bad guy inside of him telling him to do something bad. It's like, no, that's shitty. Like that's not how you turn a character around. So the lead up to this does not work, but I think this on its own, if this was all we got, it would have been much more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I was gonna ask you if you talked about the art.
It's art. Sorry, this was the one that I didn't want, like, was the worst one for me to read because I just was so checked out of it, and like Peter being so upset about this guy and that I didn't care about. It was just hard for me to relate to it. And I'm not saying that you can't take something great from this comic, Mike. I just didn't like it.
Oh, I didn't like it either. No, I'm just kidding. I liked it. I loved it. It's my favorite Spider-Man story. But anyway.
This is your favorite Spider? I thought it was the one where he's on the bus.
Well, that one's my favorite individual, but because this one comes so close after Kraven's Last Hunt, I always compare it. I think this one's better.
You think this is better than Kraven's Last Hunt?
Yeah, I think so.
Doesn't hold a candle to Mad Dog Ward.
I used to think Mad Dog Ward was good, but not anymore.
Hello.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, let's compare the two for my sake. I want to compare the suicide of Kraven versus the suicide of Stan Carter.
Good
Suicide by cop, right? Like clearly Stan has influenced the Sin Eater. He tosses the child away knowing the police will shoot him, right? So it's obviously a suicide by police attempt versus the suicide that Kraven experiences. I think the Craven one is done much more elegantly and interestingly. It's more interesting to me as a reader that he has this crazy lead up and then the finale is his death, versus this is a man undergoing psychosis and deciding that the only escape is to kill himself. I just find the first one, the Craven one, more interesting as a reader than this one, and that's, I think, is acceptable. I'm allowed to like things more than other things. I also think that the character of Craven is a much more interesting character than the character of Stan Carter, because I've never been interested in Stan Carter. Like his motivations, the Sin Eater, his religious motivations. Also, religious motivations for me are just like not interesting. Like, oh, I have to cleanse the sins. Whatever. Who cares?
One thing, Becca, Cousin Brandon has to go. We just want to know,
Oh.
Cousin Brandon, do you recommend this issue before you go?
Yeah. As much as I hated the artwork, I think the comic was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. Again, I thought it was the best of the three. I thought there was like something of actual, not material, but I thought there was something like there was a real weight to it.
Right.
A real, again, I liked looking at the Chance comic, The Amazing, the most, but I thought the artwork was shit in this one at times, but I really did. I thought this was the best story of the three. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
All right. Well, Cousin Brandon has to go early, but we want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thanks for
guys.
joining.
We'll have you on
Bye.
again.
Great talking to you guys, though, as always. And like, please don't be a stranger. I can't wait to our Station 11 podcast. I can't wait to our I can't wait to our U.S. American podcast where we just talk U.S. American.
Oh, also, I told Mike Dell that the next movie we're reviewing on LCS Hockey is the Peanut Butter Solution.
Oh, fuck
and-
yeah. I'm in.
And he wants to know Kevin wants to know if you bought the soundtrack, because that's how we'll know if you fully stand behind it. So did you buy the soundtrack?
No, but now I might. Now I'm considering it.
Okay, I'm going to tell them that.
It's a goddamn Canadian turd, and you should all be ashamed. But America's even worse, so that's what I'm saying. So fine. But hey, guys, it was great talk. It was great talking to all of you. Like I
nice catching up.
I genuinely like seeing you all. So
All
take
right,
care.
thanks. You're the only one. Okay.
Bye,
All right.
Brandon.
Bye, guys.
See you
Take
later.
care.
Bye.
Okay, back to Bex Luthor.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say is I really like the little boy's I'm with stupid shirt, and how when Stan grabs him, it's pointing at him. And I think that's very funny. It ruins the sadness of his suicide a lot, I think. It's a bad move. And I wish it was on the cover.
I didn't even notice that. Where does he...
The little boy, he's wearing an
Mhm.
I'm with stupid t-shirt.
Oh, yes. I never noticed that.
So when Sin Eater grabs him, it's pointing at him. And I'm
Mhm.
like, that's brutal.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
think
just-
Brandon knew he was still in the call, so I just cut
Oh.
that off. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I like that t-shirt too. It's dope. At first I was like, oh god damn it. And I'm a stupid t-shirt. But then I'm like, nah, I'm into it.
And like, oh, I wish it was on the cover. That'd be so funny. Because it'd be so confusing.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what I thought
Mhm.
was really beautiful if we're gonna talk about the art? Where there's the blackout in New York. And there's
That
like
goes
this
blue.
Yeah, and there's like this there it's just like Peter and Mary Jane, and then Mary Jane. I really like that rendering of Mary Jane sitting there going, Peter thinks he's normal.
Mhm.
Or only he would think that that's normal. Poo poo. Like it's just like a nice panel.
Yeah.
I love that her head pops out of the panel.
Yeah.
It just gives it that sense of atmosphere. I don't know what it is, that little tick over top. It really does it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, go
I
ahead.
I get why this story is so iconic to so many people. It's one of the first times we actually have like a serial killer have this sort of ending. We have had Craven's Hunt, but with Craven, he's more of that like comic book villain, kind of like we talked about before, where it feels weird that they're trying to make Sin Eater sympathetic when he is just a flat out serial killer murderer, instead of somebody like Craven or Doc Ock or somebody that's like more on the cartoony side where they've done bad things and they've definitely killed people before, but they have a different like tone to them where you can write them sympathetic and like give them a more humanizing story and we would buy it easier. Where I think the setup of this Sin Eater redemption, or it's not even necessarily a redemption by the end, but we're supposed to feel like he's doing the right thing and it's not the right thing. I mean,
well, he does kill. I think it is the right thing because he knows that if he's taken over with a Sin Eater, he'll kill again, right? So he chooses to kill himself rather than allow that.
I suppose so, but he's not really doing great things before that. Like he's like writing a book.
No,
he's
but
writing a book about what he.
No, I'm saying he's
like
preventing
a memoir and stuff.
He's preventing.
I know,
no.
Yeah. I get that. I just mean, I don't feel like we ever see him be tormented before this. Like the Sin Eater persona, we definitely see, but it's kind of just like a conversation between the two. It never feels like he's being tortured by his past until now. Until we see it now, right? Where before he's just kind of like living with this alter ego. We're supposed to feel bad for him because Spider-Man beat him up so bad that he has a stutter, and he's like making money off of the shitty things he's done by writing a novel. Like I don't feel anything for the Sin Eater leading up to this. Where if we had just gotten this, where we see him being tortured by his past constantly, and then he decides to give in and to end his life to protect others from dying, right? Like he's taking his own so nobody else dies, where he's not a hero for doing that, but we understand why he does it and we kind of agree. Right. So like, I just feel like we don't get that character until now, which is why this issue is successful for me. And the other two leading up to it are not successful at all in making me feel for this character. And I don't want to speak for Jolie or Becca, but I feel like maybe that's where that like disconnect is coming from, because we've read the other two leading up to this, and it's made me dislike Sin Eater even more, both as like the character and the story that they're building. So when he finally does make this sacrifice, it's like, okay, good, I guess. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like that satisfying conclusion that they wanted it to feel.
Yeah.
So
you're like a clear conduit of my thoughts. Yeah, that is exactly it. There's just we have to feel so much for Sin Eater in this third issue, and when you said it, when it was coming out of your mouth, that is exactly the feeling that I am having. That I didn't feel for him the last two issues, and it's like. It's so, it's unbalanced. It's unbalanced.
Right. And I think, too, Cousin Brandon being able to come in and just read this single issue and take so much away from it and really enjoy it proves that the other two were unneeded.
Well, not really. I think it just proves that some writers are able to write a standalone comic, even though if it's part 3 of a story, and some are not. Because I would come into stories when I was a kid and read, the second or third part of a story, and sometimes I would like it, sometimes I wouldn't. And he also read this as a kid, so that could be part of it. He
That,
already
yeah,
knew what
that could be true too. Yeah.
Unneeded, or maybe could use some work.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I read part 1 off the stand, loved it. Part 2 off the stand, loved it. So other people read it and love it. Love the first 2 parts,
I'm
including
not
me.
saying they can't. I just didn't.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do want to say
Um,
something interesting though. Is
What's that?
when the Sin Eater persona takes back control over Stan, he loses the lisp and the limp. So he never had that to begin with. It's all in his head.
Well, he says that. He says that a psychologist or whatever told him that all of his injuries might be psychosomatic, right?
So everything that Peter feels is guilt. He's like, "Oh, I crippled that guy. He didn't."
Yeah, that could be true. Yeah.
That to me, I found that a little like Peter never finds that out that he didn't cripple him, and that's kind of upsetting to me. Because Peter feels so much guilt over this, and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
I guess so, but he still does learn to let go and to, take control of his actions by the end. So
By punching Electro in the face.
by finally punching him,
just slamming him. Which,
yeah,
honestly, good for you, Peter.
yeah.
Also, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to finish up, I totally understand why people really enjoy this arc and the Sin Eater character. I just don't feel like the buildup was done properly. So I'm not a huge fan of this arc, but this issue I think is pretty good. And jumping to recommendations, I would recommend just this single issue of the 3.
I was going to say one more thing about the art. About the storytelling. This issue, I think, is an example where very rare, where art and story work perfectly together. And I've seen even comics by like A-list writers like Neil Gaiman, where the story and art do not fit together. And this last few pages, where Sin Eater basically gets the cops to kill him, and then Spider-Man walks in with Electro's body. That last page, like, I don't think any other writer could do that last page better than this. Like, I just think it's perfect. A perfect balance of there's no like, how in the middle of the fight with Electro, at one point it says outside, and we cut over to the Sin Eater as if we didn't know that's where it was. That's an editor just adding that in, right? And the comic books do that all the time, and it completely ruins the flow because you wouldn't have that in a movie, right? But that last couple pages, it's almost wordless, and what dialogue is there to me is perfect. There's no unnecessary captions, there's no references, it's just perfect. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think the storytelling in this issue is great. Anyway.
So do you recommend
the pulsating
it?
return of the spider's deadliest foe, the tarantula.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So Josh recommended it. I absolutely recommend it. Like I said,
Sorry,
this
Jolie,
is
I didn't mean to interrupt.
one of my favorite Spidey stories for sure. G.I. Jolie, do you recommend it?
If you've read the first 2, I have to recommend that you read this one. Like, you can't not. If you're reading it on its own, maybe not. It does a lot of cool things. The art does a lot of cool things, like storytelling wise, where he punches Electro. I can recommend that, where he punches Electro, but because we know Electro is stuck to the ground with webbing, Electro's feet are now bare because his boots are off. And that's like, those are the kinds of tiny little things that I like to see in comics, that I can make good recommendations for.
Bex Luthor?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my cup of tea, but lots of people like it, and that's true of most things that I don't like. Everyone else seems to like, and I like the things that nobody likes. Maybe I have bad taste. That's fine. I'm happy with myself. Yeah, no, I mean, I know a lot of people who would enjoy this 3-part series a lot more than me, and I think I just have too much internal bad juju with men killing people and mental illness depictions and all that fun stuff. And I think I'm just still salty about how they killed Jean. So I don't think I could ever enjoy, because Jean doesn't get a poetic justice send-off death scene. She just gets killed in her underwear, and that'll always piss me off more so than anything else. So I want that I'm a stupid t-shirt. one t-shirt out of 3.
All right, I guess that's it. It's too bad cousin Brandon couldn't stick around, but
He did give
Anyway.
us recommendations though, so
yeah. All right, so there you go, folks. We got our new logo. We got Jim Salicrup as editor. We got Todd McFarlane. It's a whole new era. I want to thank Bex Luthor and G.I. Jolie for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
All right. Woo! And with that, Josh, you can take it from here.
We also want to thank Paul so much for listening to the podcast.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh!
Paul, you are our number 1 fan. Honestly, seeing
We're
your
your
comments,
number 1 fan, Paul.
yeah, seeing your comments makes us so happy. Yeah, did I say it backwards?
No, you said you are our number 1 fan, but I'm Paul's number 1 fan at this point.
Oh,
Just
I
wanted
wanted to
add.
say, yeah, we're a fan of you. Whenever we see your comments, it makes us happy. So
There you go.
please keep in touch. You can comment over on the Comic Book Syndicate website, or you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know what you guys think about the podcast and the comics we're talking about. Let's keep that comics conversation going.
All right, so until next Monday, see you later.